Hasty Histories, Nanaimo, BC. For thousands of years, the Nanaimo First Nation was here before any white settler stepped foot on these shores. Their stories are best told by them. In 1852, the Hudson's Bay Company established coal mining operations here in Nanaimo after coal was brought to the attention of a Victoria blacksmith by a local First Nations person. Coal was needed, especially for the British Navy's ships stationed in Esquimalt. Settlement followed quickly. Within a few years, population grew to around 200. The bastion was built between 1853 and 1854. The HBC era ended in 1862 when the entire operation was sold to the London-based Vancouver Coal Mining and Land Company. From around 1862 on, coal mining developed slowly but surely, with periods of tremendous prosperity and periods of tremendous difficulty. At the same time as the Nanaimo-based VCMLC was operating, Robert Dunsmuir was developing his coal mines just north of Nanaimo in Wellington. Dunsmuir would eventually become one of the province's wealthiest men before he died in 1889. His son continued operations until 1910. Back in Nanaimo, the coal company developed the famous No. 1 mine, or Esplanade, under Superintendent Samuel Robbins. A completely different character than Dunsmuir, Robbins was known for his benevolent attitude towards his employees and his contributions to the well-being of the community, including donations of parklands and the establishment of Harewood 5 acres, which was today's equivalent of a lease-to-own property that was designed to offer miners some degree of economic independence from mining. The No. 1 mine was Nanaimo's major employer for over 50 years and was the most productive mine in BC for much of that time. By the turn of the 20th century, Nanaimo's population was around 5,000 and made up of immigrants, predominantly from the British Isles, but also from China, Europe, and the United States. High productivity came at a high cost. From 1874 to 1953, the years we have records for, over 600 coal miners and related support workers died, and over 1,800 had accidents. The most devastating accident was on May 3, 1887, when an explosion in the No. 1 mine at the foot of Milton Street killed 150 people. Accidents were typically blamed on Chinese workers, with no actual evidence to substantiate these claims. By the early 1920s, the coal industry was changing. Mechanization meant fewer jobs, with oil gradually replacing coal as a fuel source. The No. 1 mine closed in 1938, just before miners gained official union recognition. Labor strife had always been part of Nanaimo's economic landscape. As early as the 1850s, miners were walking off the job for better conditions. By 1912, after nearly 70 years, labor tensions culminated in the Great Strike of 1912 to 1914. The strike was so bitter and ultimately resolved nothing. Families were split between strikers and scabs, and for some, that bitterness lingered for decades. Nanaimo wasn't only about work, though. From the earliest settlement, churches and entertainment venues were built. These provided places for musical concerts, readings, socialization, dances, plays, vaudeville, and a wide range of other entertainments in addition to inspiration and motivation. For example, the Nanaimo Silver Cornet Band, now the Nanaimo Concert Band, started in the 19th century and continues to entertain Nanaimoites today. After the major mines closed, Nanaimo began the long process of developing other industries. One of the first and eventually most successful was Harmac, named after Harold Reginald McMillan. Today, Harmac's a leading producer of special pulp for medical equipment. Nanaimo no longer depends on primary resource industries. It's a regional service and trade center, home to Vancouver Island University and the Nanaimo Regional General Hospital. In 1975, the city amalgamated with outlying areas and is now home to more than 100,000 people. Nanaimo is one of the 5 fastest-growing municipalities in the country. Who knew all that was to come in 1852?